Hey guys, welcome to Yesterday's Coffee, the podcast where we chat about fitness, nutrition, and business all over coffee that may or may not have been brewed yesterday. Today we are covering the Impossible Burger, the Beyond Burger, basically these meat substitutes, because we're seeing a lot of it in the news. We're seeing a lot of fast food restaurants trying to introduce this to appeal to their meat-eating clientele. And so we want to discuss the merits or the drawbacks of these meat substitutes and if they have any place in your diet as an alternative.
Well, the thing that's, I think, crazy about these meat substitutes in particular is, these are things that we've never seen before in that they very closely mimic real meat.
Mm-hmm.
So,
that's the main draw. They're trying to take a non-beef product and make it look and taste and feel like meat.
Like meat.
To the effect that it actually bleeds.
Yes. In the past, a lot of restaurants have, tried, and even fast food restaurants have tried to offer plant-based options or, veggie burgers or meat alternatives, but they were all still very plant-based or obviously plant-based, right? So they'd be bean burgers or grain burgers, things like that.
Yeah, veggie burgers have been around for a long time.
Forever. So I can't remember which one. Was it Beyond Meat that came first?
I couldn't tell you.
I can't remember. They're both, I think it was Beyond Meat that came first, but these two burgers in particular have, just like Kyle said, done something that no one ever has done before, and that they've made a plant-based burger that can actually bleed or, has this pink color to it that actually mimics real ground beef or real meat.
Right.
Which I think is crazy. So I think it's important to say, too, that these companies have not necessarily come about to offer alternatives to vegetarians or to vegans. The market is definitely more towards people who already eat meat.
Right. It's trying to convert the meat eaters to the plant-based, the non-meat burger.
Yes.
I should say.
Exactly.
Yeah, because obviously, if you're a vegetarian that abstains from meat because of, what you would say as ethical practices or whatnot, I'm sure that the last thing that you're worried about in your food is that it bleeds.
I've actually seen and heard a lot of discussions from vegetarians and vegans being very against these kinds of meat alternatives because it kind of defeats the purpose in that it still seems like a dead animal. So if you're an ethical vegetarian or vegan, I don't know that this is doing anything for you.
Fake dead animal fix.
Or people who've grown up plant-based, people who grew up vegetarian or grew up vegan who don't really have any comparison to make. They've never had actual beef or meat, so it doesn't really matter. So
I feel bad for them.
Again, these products are marketed to convert meat eaters to becoming more plant-based. And some of these companies will tout health benefits, and some of them will talk about, what word am I looking for? Environmental, environmental reasons and, benefits for the environment and for the future of our earth and things like that, which, we're here to talk about the health aspect today. But I will say that, there are some good resources to check out that give you a good look at both sides of the question of environmental
sustainability.
Benefits and sustainability.
It's not as cut and dry as you'd think.
It's not. It's really not. So
anyway, most things. But
but that's not what we're here to talk about today. So we're just going to talk about the health aspects.
On the nutrition sides. So we've got this meatless burger that bleeds. What is this thing made of?
So this is a burger made mostly of soy protein. So on the website, both of them, I believe, Beyond Meat and the Impossible Burger, are made mostly of soy. The Impossible Burger specifically also has some potato proteins to it, which...
It's primarily a soy protein concentrate.
Yes, but there are about 3 or 4 different soy-based ingredients in the Impossible Burger specifically. The Beyond Meat Burger does have more chemical-based ingredients. The Impossible Burger is more recognizable ingredients with a shorter ingredients list. But what it really comes down to between the both is that they're both mostly soy-based. Unless, is the Beyond
soy
also
is
soy?
The primary ingredient.
Okay. Because some meat alternatives and some, plant-based options will be wheat-based, but I believe that these two are both soy. So the other thing that both of these companies do is they do add some nutrients back into their product. Mm-hmm. So that's something that I kind of see as a pro for, burgers like the Impossible Burger, where they're adding a few B vitamins back in. You are getting some plant-based iron coming in from the heme that they're using, or the plant-based hemoglobin that they're using to give you that kind of like meaty texture and that like bleeding effect.
Right.
So you're getting a little bit of iron there. You're getting some B vitamins, specifically B12, which is something that a lot of plant-based people are deficient in.
Right.
But again, when you're marketing towards people who already eat meat, I don't know that those two things are really that much of a benefit.
Well, so that's what I was going to say.
If I'm honest.
That's what I was going to say is like if we're putting this in the perspective of these are marketed towards meat eaters, those B vitamins and iron you're going to be getting from red meat in much better forms.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily a pro in the sense of you switch from beef to this and now you're getting these things. It's like, oh, now it's still...
You're actually getting less of these things by switching over. It still kind of
has these things. Now, it'd be different if you are speaking to a vegetarian who we know are typically very lacking in B vitamins, very lacking in iron. So when you incorporate another food that can have more of those resources to pull from, in that sense, it's not bad. But as it is concerned with an actual meat eater transitioning to this, you're not getting a benefit. If anything, you're getting less than what you were before.
Unless this is them thinking long term, like if they're really thinking that they're going to transition people who eat meat now into becoming fully plant-based eaters, maybe that's them thinking ahead. But at the same time, I feel like it's almost just trying to pull in people who are misinformed or ill-informed. Because again, what we know, and this is kind of what I marked down as being a con, is that, plant-based iron has to be converted in the body. So your body can't use plant-based iron, right? We're not plants. So our body has to actually convert plant-based iron into something usable, and the conversion is very, very low. So you would need a ton of plant-based iron to be converted into, a decent amount that's going to be used by your body.
Right. So in a one-to-one comparison with beef, you're getting less.
Yes.
No question about it.
Yes. So nutrient-wise, if you're comparing the two, you are getting less. One thing that, about the Beyond Burger specifically is that I would say it's pretty reasonably priced. So if somebody was curious or somebody wanted to make a switch, it's going to be comparable, but still not to the point, in my mind or my opinion, still not to the point where you're getting enough to really justify that extra cost.
Right. Well, it's going to be comparable or a little bit more than grass-fed beef we're talking about here.
Well, I would say it's comparable to grass-fed, if not a little bit cheaper, depending on where your grass-fed's being sourced from. So it's $7 to $8 a pound for the Beyond Burger. The Impossible Burger is not yet offered in chains, in grocery chains. It's just being offered to select restaurants right now. So their plan is to roll it out for retail in the future, but they haven't done it yet.
So at best, we'll call it comparable with grass-fed beef.
Well, because let's talk about that. So if the Beyond Meat Burger is $7 to $8 a pound, grass-fed is pretty much $7 to $10 a pound, depending on where you're getting it.
Yeah, most of the time it's 7 to 8.
Conventional beef is what? $5 a pound?
I mean, conventional beef can be even cheaper.
It varies.
Than that.
Yeah, it
even
varies
as
based
low as
on
like 3 or 4. But...
Sure, based on quality and based on fat content.
Right.
Fat content is another place where I feel like these meat alternatives fall short, is because obviously when you're talking about real beef, you can buy just about any lean to fat ratio that you want.
Right.
Whereas with these meat alternatives, there's only one offering. And that offering isn't terrible, to be honest. I mean, it's similar to like an 85-15 beef, which
isn't great.
Isn't great. It's not great, but it's not terrible, I guess. Like, if you were looking to just like maintain your health and maintain your weight, if we're looking through that lens, you could incorporate something that's like an 85-15.
Yeah, I mean,
fat to lean.
From a standpoint of fitting this into your macros, it would be doable, no question about it.
But you have to work a little bit at it. And is it worth it?
And
I don't know.
It's it's just not ideal in any sense. So if we're looking at the macros in a 4-ounce serving of the Impossible Burger, and these might vary a gram or two, but it's typically around 14 grams of fat, 9 grams of carbs, 16 grams of protein. I think there's a few grams of fiber, so maybe you can subtract a few carbs there.
Not very many, though. I don't think it was significant.
The Beyond Burger, 20 grams of fat, 5 grams of carbs, 20 grams of protein. So you're pretty much same on the fat and the protein intake, which means that your calories from fat are significantly higher because obviously there's more calories for every gram of fat. And then as that compares to beef, an 85% ground beef is normally around 16 grams of fat, no carbs, and 20 grams of protein per 4-ounce serving. Now, I personally never recommend anything under 90%. And so if we're looking at that, that's 11 grams of fat, no carbs, and 22 grams of protein. So you're getting half the gram of fat for every gram of protein in a 90% beef. Mm-hmm. And obviously you can go even leaner than that. You can go 92, 93, 96 even. And you don't have those options with this style of burger. And so if you're somebody that's coming from a 90% lean burger or leaner, you're going to have a much harder time fitting this into your macros without going over on your fat or without being short on your protein. And there might even be situations where if you were using like a really lean beef in a post-workout window because you're trying to minimize fat intake and really bolster your protein intake, where these two don't really compare because you have to have all those extra fats coming in along with the protein in these two burger substitutes.
That's absolutely true. But then I guess to compare on the other side, if you're talking about a fast food burger or if you're talking about a burger at a restaurant, they're typically using an 80-20, sometimes fattier. So... Yeah.
Well, so
if we're comparing this plant-based to like some of the better options you could find in a supermarket to make your own burger, the plant-based is going to not really be a great comparison.
Well, so the Beyond is typically in the supermarket right next to the grass-fed.
Yes.
And it's typically being marketed as a healthy alternative.
Better option.
Right. And it's just flat out not.
Yeah, it's not.
And then if you look at the comparison, so we'll take Burger King, for example. They just implemented the Impossible Whopper. Mm-hmm. Their actual beef Whopper patty and their Impossible Whopper patty are nearly identical macro-wise.
Mm. Is their Whopper 100% beef?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. Because that's another question you have to ask sometimes, too, is just because you're going, to a restaurant doesn't mean that their burger is 100% beef.
And that's also not me telling you to just go out and eat Whoppers.
Yeah. Also not. That's not what we're saying. But we're saying, like, if we're comparing, we're not seeing a very clear value or pro to choosing this plant-based alternative over something that's 100% beef.
Right. And if you're on par with the nutrient composition and quality of a Whopper, then you're really low on the totem pole.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too is like, yeah, if you're like micromanaging macros between this plant-based fast food burger and a regular fast food burger, you're still out eating kind of a crappy quality food.
Yeah.
And does it really matter? Like, wouldn't you rather just have whichever one you think tastes better? Like, instead of like thinking that you're making a healthier choice, it's like you're still eating a fast food burger.
Especially if you're not even enjoying it as much.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like
like that
you're
just
really
kind of
not making a healthier
wound.
choice for your body. You're really not making a healthier choice for the environment, no matter how much people want to tell you that.
Yeah, I mean, you're not switching to this burger and getting health benefits.
Yes. True. And most of the time, you're actually paying more money. So even the fast food options are like a much higher price than the standard beef option by almost $2. So the Whopper side to side, I think they said the Impossible Whopper was close to $6. So it's almost $6, whereas a regular Whopper was $4 something.
I don't know.
$4 something. I looked up the price, but I don't know if it's outdated. I think the price I saw was $4 something. So we're talking about a significant difference between the two. I also saw the Red Robin prices were, I think, $9 to $10 for an average beef burger, and then $13 something for the Impossible Burger. Yeah. Which
under
again,
this guise of health.
Yes,
and it's just
they're
not.
Just getting more money from you. Like they're just getting more money. So we talked about some of the other cons of nutritional value and the conversion of iron. The other thing that I really wanted to, make known is the fact that there's a lot of controversy around soy. I don't think that soy is the worst thing in the world, but I do think the quality of soy, just like quality of anything else, does matter.
Mm-hmm.
So I dove a little deeper into the types of soy that they're using in these products, and they're using like the cheapest GMO, like super farmed soy products available because they are trying to keep things cheap, which again, if we're looking at the cost of the final product versus like the cost of the materials that are going into it, and like granted, I'm sure like the processing takes a lot of labor and time and effort, and like this whole heme thing takes a lot of extra effort.
Mm-hmm.
But soy is a super, super cheap food.
Right.
So for them to still be coming out with a product that is only just comparable to a really high quality grass-fed product, like that doesn't make any sense to me.
More comparable to the lower end products from a macro standpoint.
Well, I'm just saying like price on the shelf.
Oh yeah,
like at the grocery store.
Price-wise, sure.
But like back to that soy issue, I mention it sometimes. I don't know how much you actually believe this or not, but pesticides, preservatives, things that are put onto our foods or added to our foods that our body just can't process very well. So one of those things that it's actually been in the news quite a bit would be glyphosate. So glyphosate or Roundup,
mm-hmm.
these like weed killers that are being sprayed on our crops, mostly things like wheat, corn, soy. A lot of different crops are sprayed with this, but those are the ones that tend to have the highest residues. So residue left over in that crop that is then making its way into your body.
Right. I try to avoid soy at all possible.
Well, and the thing is, like, wheat is just as bad as soy if we're talking about, like, glyphosate residue in certain areas, because I know that there are also all these other nuances between, like, how the crops are actually treated and, like, which crops need more treatment and things like that. So in certain areas, wheat is not quite as bad. Other areas it is. But I think soy just across the board is it's one of the higher residue crops. And there was, when was this? Like last year, there was that big lawsuit with he was like a lawn care person for a building, and he basically was spraying Roundup way more than you should be spraying for health. Like
cancer.
Yeah, the guy who got cancer. Yeah. Long story short, he was exposed to glyphosate on basically a daily basis and got cancer and won, what was it, like $30 million? He won
I thought it was like hundreds.
Yeah, maybe it was. I don't know. It was an insane lawsuit that he was awarded because they basically showed this link between this glyphosate and his cancer. That's concerning to me. So even though there are other, I don't know, safety like the FDA has said that there's a safe amount that you can consume, or a safe amount like that can be on crops to be sold. I just don't know how much I trust it. Like, we know that.
Well, especially if you start eating this in bulk quantities.
Yes. Because again, like, I think it's safe to say that large amounts or exposure to large amounts is going to have an impact. So I think that the FDA and Monsanto and all these other companies are trying to downplay the effect of like long-term low exposure, right? Mm-hmm. Which we know that those things can have cumulative effects over time, but they like to ignore that part. So, and what's concerning is the safety, like the recommended allowance, or like what word am I looking for? Like the amount that can be found on crops used to be at like a 0.1 gram per kilogram amount. Mm-hmm. And the FDA changed, I think this was a few years ago, changed that value to 20. So whereas it used to only be allowed to have 0.1 grams per kilogram of
milligrams per kilogram
of glyphosate residue in a crop, mm-hmm. now it's 20 milligrams per kilogram.
Wow.
That's a huge increase.
Was that 200%?
0.1 to 20. Yeah, it's like from 100 to
2,000%?
20,000.
I don't know. That's a lot.
Well, they used another like measurement, and it was 100 to 20,000. So
Wow.
the old standard was 100. The new standard is 20,000. And the standards weren't changed based on safety testing. That was the problem. So the problem is that the FDA didn't change these standards because they found that a higher exposure was safe. They changed them because all of the average tests that were coming back were just higher than what they had already deemed allowable. So instead of shutting down all of these farms,
just up the limitation.
They upped the limit.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's a good way to do it.
Yeah, I read another excerpt that the FDA admitted to not testing as frequently as they are supposed to because of funding and budgets and things like that, like money. But I don't think that that's a good reason.
Well, the other thing that I wanted to just quickly mention was the thing that they add to the burgers to make it bleed. These companies tried to...
Yeah, it hasn't had enough safety testing to actually have been deemed safe by the FDA.
Well, no. So they tried to get the FDA to put its stamp of approval on it, and the FDA refused. Like, they actually put that forward, and the FDA said no, based on what we know about this and the limited scope of what we understand about it. Because it's again, that soy derivative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the way that it's artificially... taken from the wheat crop and then incorporated into...
Yeah, well, it's not something that's ever been put in a food before.
Mm-hmm.
So the FDA doesn't have any testing to show that it's safe. So the FDA didn't put its stamp of approval, but that ingredient is still allowed to be put in that food until it's found to be unsafe. Right. Which, again, that's just to give you some background on kind of how testing and the FDA works, is like, just because it's not deemed safe doesn't mean it can't be put in your food.
Right.
A lot of times those things get passed along and they get put into our food system. And then later, once there's actually been substantial testing on something and they realize that it is harmful, that's when they pull it. So you've already been exposed to it when it wasn't tested well.
Right.
And then later, like, oh no, like, it's dangerous.
And that's not to say it's going to kill you, but
no.
It might give you an upset stomach.
And the thing is, like, it might be safe. It might be totally safe. The problem is that the people that we're putting our trust in to make sure that we're safe, the processes don't support that.
All to get you a Frankenstein plant burger that bleeds with less nutritional value than beef.
Yes.
It's almost like the beef does it better naturally.
I know, it's crazy, right? Like, wow, like, maybe it's just that we should eat. And we've already talked about how, all the reasons that we've demonized red meat in the past. Mm-hmm. So, saturated fat, cholesterol, sodium, heart disease, sodium, all these things. We've basically been able to say, actually, we were wrong and it's not that big of a deal. And actually, beef and red meat have a lot of health benefits and a lot of nutrients.
Some of the most nutrient-dense food you can eat.
Yeah. So now all these companies are taking the more, like, conscientious approach. Like,
yeah, that's what they're billing it as.
Yes. So instead of, like... I feel like a lot of these companies have dropped the whole, like, health aspect to focus more on this, like, let's build a better future for our earth, like, let's support the environment. When, again, like, I will tell you again, like, it's not as cut and dry as it sounds.
How can we maximize profits on really cheap soy and get the public to buy into it?
It's just another marketing technique.
It's not health now.
And
now
because
it's the conscientiousness and the sustainability.
Because environmental things are now so popular and trendy and in the mainstream, now that's the marketing technique that they're using, which, again, guys, do your own research on it, but the bottom line is it's really not a better choice for your health. It's probably not a better choice for the environment. You're better off just eating a high quality beef.
It's probably not going to taste better either.
And it's definitely not going to taste, well, it's not going to taste the same. Like, no matter, it might come close, right? It might come close. Your burger might taste okay if you put, like, all of the things on it that make a burger.
Right. You can drown out the taste.
But for what reason? Like, there really isn't one.
You're not going to win with it.
No.
So,
anyway.
Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you've got any questions or concerns that you'd like us to cover in the future, feel free to reach out to myself at HypertroFit.com. You can find Alexa at therootedrd.com, and we will see you guys again next week.
We'll see you guys next week.